Well, I am very excited about this particular church leader tool. I have on an interview Steve McKinley, Pastor Steve McKinley. If you were a reader of the old Lutheran publication Lutheran Partners, then you might remember Steve as Pastor Loci. Wrote a monthly column that was just always real helpful. You knew he was in the trenches with other church leaders. And so I have Steve on the line today. Steve, welcome to Church Leader Tools.
Thank you, Stuart. Good to be with you.
So I invited Steve on because years ago I heard him give a presentation on the dance of leadership, and the metaphor really stuck in my mind. And so I tracked Steve down in his retirement and asked if he would share a little bit about the dance of leadership.
Well, thank you, Stuart. I'd be happy to. And I thought about this because after I retired from parish ministry, what are you going to do to keep your mind fresh? We had recently seen the movie Shall We Dance with Richard Gere and Jennifer Lopez, where Richard Gere is an attorney who signs up for ballroom dancing lessons with Jennifer Lopez as his instructor. And saw that movie with our daughters. I said, that's what I want to do. I want to learn to dance. So one of our daughters gave us a series of dance lessons at a local studio. I went, at first I was disappointed because J-Lo wasn't my teacher. My teacher was Chad. But we had a wonderful time learning to dance. And I've thought about it a lot in the midst of the pleasure. The first thing we established in the lessons with Chad was that it was going to be my role to lead. Now, I wasn't real excited about that. My wife is a much more graceful person than I am. She'd had a little dancing background. I hadn't. I was just a kid from Iowa. And so I would have been perfectly willing to let her lead. But Chad would have none of that. It was my role to lead. In baseball and softball, the visiting team bats first. In dancing, the man leads, period. That's his role. So I had to be the leader in our ballroom dancing. Of course, you don't need to lead if you're not going to go anywhere. And you've probably seen those people on the dance floor, those happy couples that just sort of want to snuggle with each other and stand in one place. Well, fine, good for them. But if you're really going to dance, somebody has to lead. I discovered that what that means is that you first have to hear the music and recognize the appropriate dance. What fits? What fits the music? What fits the situation? You wouldn't want to do a samba to waltz music or vice versa. Now, I want to assure you that I never became agile enough to really do a samba, but the point still pertains. You have to recognize the appropriate dance for the music. And you come to an agreement with your partner. Let's say if I thought it was a rumba and Pat thought it was a cha-cha, we would need to come to some agreement as to what it was before we began to dance. Then you have to have a plan for the dance, a plan for how you do the dance. At first, you start out simple, but then you add some refinement. If you're doing a rumba begins with a simple box step with a quick, slow pattern. After a while, that can get fairly boring. So you learn some additional moves. The box step moves on to the rocker steps and the cross-body lead and walking steps and the fifth position. You develop that with your partner and have a plan for doing the dance. Then you communicate the plan for the dance. And usually, when you're the leader, when you're the man doing the lead, you communicate that with touch or with movement. I might raise my arm, which would give one kind of signal to Pat, or kind of lighten my touch on her back, which says, you're going to back up now, or step back myself. Communicate the plan over and over again, and sometimes you even whisper to each other. Many times, Pat has made a suggestion to me, hey, we haven't done a promenade in some time. And that's good. So I'll try and adjust in that way. Yes, I'll confess, having taken our dancing lessons, we do faithfully watch Dancing with the Stars. And I notice, though you can't hear it in the live broadcasts when they go back and check in, I notice that the dancing partners, in particular the pros, are talking all the time. So you communicate the plan, and then you adjust the plan. Adjust the plan to the circumstances. You know, we took the lessons. It was wonderful. I had gained so much confidence. And then we went to a wedding reception. Now, I usually regard wedding receptions the way rats regard sinking ships as something to be avoided. You know, as a pastor, I went to many wedding receptions where I wound up sitting at a table with Uncle Charlie, who had had a bad experience with the pastor when he was in the 4th grade and had not been back to a church since then, and was more than happy to tell me all about it. So I steered clear of wedding receptions, but now, with my newfound dancing skill, I was ready to go to a wedding reception. And the music started, and Pat and I immediately got up to dance. And of all things, there were other people dancing. There were bridesmaids dancing with groomsmen, you know, and now Grandpa was dancing with his 9-year-old granddaughter. There were servers wandering around with cake and drinks. And I would start out on a good double promenade and run into traffic and have to adjust to a single promenade. So you adjust the plan and on you go. And listen for changing music to adjust your dance. Sometimes the rumba might become, over time, a waltz. So we had a great time dancing. And then as a pastor, as a person who always thinks about sermons and how you do ministry and all that, I realized that some of the things I had learned also applied to leadership in the congregation. First of all, the basic assumption that somebody has to lead. Now, just like there are couples on the dance floor who are perfectly happy to not go anywhere, who just stand and embrace each other, there are congregations, and I think rostered leaders, who are perfectly happy to go nowhere, who just sort of love each other. I used to drive past a church, not a Lutheran church, but a church in the community where I served, a church with a sign that said, "We love each other." And that bugged me. Big deal. We love each other. Well, yeah, that's good. We'll take that for granted. But the church, I think, needs to be about something more than that. And if it's going to be about something more than that, somebody has to lead. I'm a simple thinker. I believe that that's the role of a rostered leader, to lead. That's why they call us rostered leaders, not because the rostered leader is a superior Christian, not because the rostered leader is more godly than anybody else, but because it goes with the role. You don't get a swelled head about it. You just take it on. And in dialogue with your congregation, with your partners, that's what you do as a rostered leader. You hear the music and recognize the appropriate dance in conversation with your dance partner. If it depends on your congregational setting, it depends on who is there, it depends on who is around you, it depends on what gifts your congregation had. I remember a congregation, wasn't my congregation, it was in a setting where new construction was going on around the church. The neighborhood was being redeveloped, and it was being redeveloped with senior citizen housing. Hundreds of senior citizen units were coming in around the church, and the church went through a big planning process and came to the conclusion that they wanted to focus on youth ministry. I'm not sure they were hearing the music. So what's the music of your congregation and community? And once you've decided what the music is, have a plan. You develop the plan with your partners in the congregation. I think a rostered leader should have some tools in their own toolbox. It's the old thing about if your only tool is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. I hope rostered leaders, through the help of people like Stuart and programs like this, working in partnership with lay leaders and the synod, with peers, with the ELCA, and with seminary, you develop the plan. A variety of approaches. And then you communicate the plan over and over again. Faithfully communicate the plan. You'll talk about it until you're sick of it, but people need to keep hearing it. I had a friend who built a fine new church building for the congregation. And he told me that when he first went there, he saw that the building wasn't adequate, but the people had not yet bought into that, hadn't bought into the vision. So he kept communicating that plan, that need to expand the facility, which was a genuine need. And finally, the new building came, and I said, how long did it take? How long did it take for you to communicate that vision and get people to buy in? He said 13 years. 13 years. You keep communicating the plan, and then you adjust the plan. Maybe you've planned for a new Sunday afternoon service for families where people don't sit in pews. They sit at tables and listen to techno rock music for worship. And then you discover that the people don't really want to sit at tables, and they don't really like techno music. And Saturday afternoon, late Saturday afternoon would be better than late Sunday afternoon, but they love the idea of coming with new neighbors. Fine, adjust the plan. I found that once I overcame my inherent shyness and fear and learned to dance with my wife, that was one of the great periods of time, a great time for us together. To hold my wife in my arms and for us to move around the floor in something approaching a decent dance, well, that was terrific. And when you're dancing with the congregation and moving in an appropriate way, what a joy that is as well. So those are some of my thoughts about the dance of leadership, Stuart.
Well, there's awesome stuff in there, Steve. Thank you so much. I'm sitting here listening to you and thinking about my own context and other context I'm aware of, and just missteps or like, oh, yeah, I need to do that. That one of the questions that pops into my mind is, as you look at those 5, which do you think is our biggest problem?
Probably communicating the plan. I was especially early on in our dancing together, I kept fighting with the idea that Pat should know what I was thinking and should have complete buy-in to what I was thinking. So I didn't always communicate the plan well. And I wrestled with that in parish ministry. Gosh, these people should know what I'm thinking. They should be sharing my mindset. And part of the problem was that I wasn't communicating well enough. And of course, as rostered leaders know, a big part of the communication is listening. My dad's favorite adage was God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that means you should listen twice as much as you talk. Good advice that I tried to follow.
Very true. Very true. I think that makes a lot of sense.
And you gave me a good reminder there, Stuart, about missteps. I never learned to do all the steps perfectly to any dance, but I also learned that you can't just stop when you do something wrong. You adjust and you keep moving. Accept your own fallibility.
Excellent. Steve, I thank you so much. And I think this metaphor of the dance of leadership is going to be a great blessing to folks.
Thank you. I hope so.
Absolutely. Steve, God bless your ministry and your retirement and your Dancing with Pat.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Same to you and your congregation and to the other rostered leaders of the Maryland Synod. Delaware-Maryland Synod, if I can just slip in a little personal word, and Stuart will cut this out if he doesn't want it. But when I started seminary many years ago, I was a rebel. Maybe I was always a rebel. I did not go to a Lutheran seminary. I went to Yale Divinity School. And the guy in the room next to mine turned out to be a Lutheran as well and became a lifetime friend, a great sustaining friendship that endured over the years. And that was your late Bishop Jerry Nockey, who was one of the best friends I'll ever have in this life. So I feel a particular tie to your synod.
Excellent. Well, I think people will feel more connected with you now as well, having listened to this great church leader tool.
Thank you, Stuart.
Absolutely. Take care. God bless.
Okay. Bye now.